Douglas, and it sped up some of the stuff that I was working on, and so we published it that night because we wanted to kind of paint the picture of not that like I think the thing that's been misconstrued, and I take responsibility for that a little bit because the headline was a little misleading, but um, like the goal wasn't to say, Joe Douglas didn't deserve to be fired or anything like that. Like he had 6 years to make the playoffs and he didn't do it, and he made a lot of mistakes along the way. It was more just like to show what he had been dealing with for the last like year and a half, essentially, and the way Woody got involved and all of that kind of stuff. And so I'd like our goal is always to tell the story of the Jets and their season and kind of peel back the curtain and show what's going on. And that was the goal with this story.
Okay. Zach, real quick before I want to get to Woody real quick. So do you think Woody's going to completely, I know he's probably going to leave for the ambassador, but do you think he's going to just completely, he's done? Because from everybody, oh, Rodgers played his last game 2 weeks ago, and it seems like he's playing now. Do you think he's just going to rip this whole thing apart and just get rid of Rodgers and start unloading people and shredding this shit down to the studs? Or what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, he already pretty much started doing that if you just consider that the head coach and GM are fired before Thanksgiving, which even in a worst case scenario, I don't think anybody saw that coming. But yeah, I do think there's something to that. I think the hope, whether that's internal or external, like I think the hope is that Woody hires somebody and lets that person make the decisions. But historically, that hasn't been the case. There's been owners, and I reference James Dolan a lot. There's been owners who kind of have learned their lesson and hire somebody smart, let them run the show, and then it's worked out with the Knicks. Um, and so you hope Woody can kind of have a little bit of self awareness and um, hand off the decision making to the whatever GM they hire. But so I think the Rodgers conversation, like I think things can change, but I'd say like as of right now, I do not see him coming back.
Okay, then, so they're going to just absorb this cap hit, and then do you think they'll spread it out? What do you think they're going to do here? Or they'll just
Yeah,
take it all on the chin now?
I don't think they're going to cut him during the season necessarily. I mean, I wouldn't completely rule out anything at this point, but I think it's more in the off season, and then if you want to save money, then you do it post June 1, and then you can spread out the dead cap hit over a couple of years. But either way, his contract, like I don't think his salary next year is like fully guaranteed or anything like that. I think it's just more the money they've already paid him is on the books. So I think it's more both sides kind of deciding how they want to do it.
Is there any value to him, Zach, like trade wise? Do you think somebody would go
Uh,
out and get him or no?
No, I don't think so. I don't think at this point there's really any value there unless it's like just some sort of pick swap or something, I guess. But I don't even know what teams will be interested in him is the thing ultimately. He's going to be 42 in December of next year, coming off one of his worst seasons ever, and you get the whole package when you get him. So there's not really any value there at this point.
Yeah, but Zach, this is where the Jets lose me though. They trade for Devontae Adams, and
Hmm.
now you think he's gone because then, Zach, we can't afford to give up draft picks, and
Yeah.
and he's and they restructure his deal. They're pushing more dead money back, and I know I looked at the cap number. I don't know if you did. I think it's like $9 million next year in dead money or whatever. But Zach,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. I know it's about giving people chances, but what is Malachi? They don't even trust Malachi
Yeah.
Corley, and next year you're going to have him as the number two receiver here. I mean, what are they doing?
Yeah, no, to the Devontae point, like my, I don't know. I think they should. I don't know if Devontae's going to want to stay here if Aaron's not here, but I would try to keep him. I mean, I think he's actually been pretty good. I think his chemistry with Aaron hasn't been there as everybody expected, but I still think he's a pretty good player. I think he can be a leader, and he's still a really good wide receiver. So if possible, I would try and convince him to stay, but I just don't know that he's going to want to stay if Aaron's not there anymore.
Correct, because I would keep him too. Because Zach, listen, do you feel before we get to the hands, do you feel the Jets are a couple of coaches away, staff that can compete next year? If they even if they run it with Tyrod Taylor, just say, do you think they're a 3-14 team next year with most of this nucleus back without Aaron Rodgers, or do you think they can turn it around pretty quickly?
Yeah, it's so hard to predict because I don't know what they're going to do. Like, I don't know if they completely blow it up and like trade Sauce or something like that. But if they stick with this core that they have, I do think they have the pieces to still be competitive, whether that's Aaron Rodgers or Tyrod or a rookie or whatever. Like I do think you look at the offense, I think this offensive line is in as good of shape as it's been in a long time. I think they should re-sign Morgan Moses, and then you have a pretty solid group of five with some young guys. Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson, need a revamp at tight end. You have, you still have Quinnen, you still have Jermaine coming back, Will McDonald, Quincy, if you re-sign Sherwood, and then the corners. Like I think that's like a solid core right there. Fill out the roster a little. Like I don't see this as a playoff team next year if Tyrod's your quarterback, but I do think they can be competitive and grind out 6, 7 wins or whatever it is.
So Zach, if you, you know what, June, I want you to go because I've been asking a lot of questions. Zach, thanks for joining
Yeah,
again.
no problem.
June, you
Zach,
ready?
yeah, Zach, thanks for joining us again, bro. It's always a pleasure talking to you, man.
Yeah, of course.
All right, my question is simple. All right, with all the negative headlines, storylines that surround this team, um, I want to know if I'm wrong or not. The top tier coaches will take other options, and we'll end up with either tier two, a bottom tier two, or a tier three coach. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess I go back and forth on this. I agree with you. Like I think if Mike Vrabel, Ben Johnson, like all the big names everybody's talking about, like if they're choosing between the Jets and one of these other openings, like the Jets aren't going to be the highest on the list. Um, but I do think the old cliche of like there's only 32 jobs, like that. I think that's absolutely true, and I think you'll
Right.
see you know if people will forget that, like coming off Gase, I don't think anybody thought the Jets were going to be able to get like a hot candidate. And Robert Saleh was one of the hottest coaching candidates at the time, and Joe
Right.
Douglas was the hottest GM candidate. So I think ultimately, you can convince people, okay, you can be the one, as people say, you can have a statue built in your in your name if you lead this team to the playoffs and you make them like relevant. So I think there's some appeal to that. But yeah, I think ultimately there are going to be so many job openings this year that I think the Jets are not going to be at the top of anybody's list.
And let me say this, because you're right. Joe Douglas was the top of the GM list, and Robert Saleh was the top of the head coaching list. And being that it went the way it went, now I think now more than ever, coaches or good GM candidates would shy away from this job.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing they have working against them is the whole Woody factor. Is that even before we started publishing stuff, like it's been well known that he gets pretty involved more than most owners. So I think that's something you have to overcome. I even, when Joe was hired, he was hired by Christopher Johnson, and he was hired with the idea that like when Woody came back, he wouldn't be as involved as he used to be, and then that wasn't the case. So that is something they have to overcome. And if Woody can convince these people, like I'm going to let you do what you have to do, then I think the job becomes more appealing.
Now, I got one last question left. I mean, we all know about what happened with the Parcells and Belichick thing. Did has anything ever came out on what happened or why did they step away once Woody took over?
I think Bill has kind of like alluded to it. I think it was the ownership thing. I think Bill didn't want to deal with the new ownership group because they were just transitioning over to Woody. Then is when when Belichick was promoted, and I think he did not. I mean, as you've seen over the years, he mocks Woody at every
Yes,
turn. So
every opportunity he gets, absolutely.
yeah.
All right, well,
Zach,
thanks, man.
thanks, June. So Zach, I've been obviously at training camp, and I actually saw one day the helicopter land, and there was a truck there. I don't know. I think it was Woody's son that he didn't even walk from the facility to the helicopter pad. But is this true? I know Glazer reported it. I mean, that really happened to where he went like that to like, how embarrassing is that, man?
So
Like, what is Woody like? I'm not asking you to bash Woody here, Zach, but
yeah.
I mean, it's really a bad look for the fans too. Like, he's got an angry fan base, and I don't even think he's thinking anymore about us or anything. Like, he's just on a tirade.
Yeah, I mean, I won't comment on that.
Okay,
I
that's
know how
fair.
thing.
That's me.
I
Yeah,
know,
that's
but what I will say
sorry
about
about that.
about the helicopter thing, like I didn't hear the exact story that Glazer told, but I did hear that when they were practicing that day because Woody wanted them to practice during the bye, and And I know they all saw the helicopter land during practice, and literally there were some people who turned to each other like, "Oh, that can't be good." And then Joe's fired. Like I didn't hear the whole Joe saying it's been an honor working with you to Ulbrich or whatever that he said.
Right. Now, Zach, I'm sorry if I'm just speaking as a fan, Zach,
No, no, you're good. You're good. I
because
get it.
yeah, because listen, Jets have been very good to me, but Zach, it's what they did with the season tickets again, raising
Hmm.
prices. They're desperate to have fans in the building, but yet they're raising prices. You're asking for stuff. You're asking for money before. I can understand if you're asking for playoff money in
Yeah,
October, but to ask for money for games that aren't going to be played till next August, September, when it's been March, and you
yeah,
could say that the NFL is going that way, but it's leaving a bad taste in fans' mouths, Zach. And I don't want you to comment about Woody, but in my opinion, he's chasing fans away. And people are going to make fun of the Jets constantly, and then people are saying, "Don't go to the games, don't show up." And then what? We're going to
yeah,
be the laughing stock when there's gray empty seats when there already is when they were supposed to be good. It's just a nightmare, man. Sorry for the
yeah.
rant, Zach.
No, you're good. Like I feel like I've heard more than ever this year about people saying they're not renewing their season tickets. I don't have like numbers on how many, but it does really seem like not a movement, but it seems like there's a decent chunk of this fan base that is just like, what's the point?
Yeah, Zach, there's people during the games writing emails to their ticket reps
Oh my
instead
god.
of watching the game. I mean,
Yeah,
this is the pulse of the fans. I just want you to know. I know you report on it and you're in the press box, but this is people in the upper level. And then there's all these conversations. It's just, Zach, could you imagine this season going like this? Anyone?
no, even I always thought in the back of my head there was a chance it could go poorly, but I think like the moment he fired Robert Sala when they were what 2-3, like that's when it was like, oh, okay, it's gonna be that kind of season. Like it just felt like things were getting weird already, and then it just got worse and worse and worse, and yeah, like you said, like it reached a point that I could never have. If you had told me Aaron Rodgers was gonna play all of the first 10 or however many games, 11 games, and they'd be 3-8, I would have thought you were crazy. I thought if anything, it would have been Aaron getting hurt at some point and them having to, truck through another season with a backup. But like that, everybody's pretty much been healthy. You lose a couple guys, but it 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 has gone so much worse than I think anybody inside or outside of the building could have expected.
Yep. Zach, I'm going to turn it over to the fans at one last question. If you were the GM, would you trade Gardner, and what would you expect to get in return? Because a lot of fans are out on him.
Yeah,
I don't know if you thought about. I'm sure you see it on
I
social
want
yeah,
media,
yeah.
but what
I want to hear this. I
what
want to
would
hear
you
this so much.
if you could answer that, Zach? I know you report, but do you think
Yeah, yeah,
do you think the new GM isn't Sauce Gardner an attractive option for a coach and a GM to come
yeah.
here? Isn't he a building block? In my eyes, he is.
I
Mm,
I generally am of the mind that you don't want to be getting rid of like young talent, but I do think there's the GM coming in, the Jets, they have given up some draft picks, and I don't know, like if you can get like a Jamal Adams type offer for Sauce Gardner, I think you would have to consider it certainly. But I'm of the mind that you try to keep young elite talent in the building as much as you can because the Jets for a long time the Jets are not drafting guys that were even worth a second contract. So I lean towards keeping these guys as much as possible. Although you're gonna have to pay him a lot, even coming off a down year for him, he's still gonna be asking for a lot of money. So
Fair enough. All right, guys, I'm going to open up the floor here. If you're in here and you have your hand up, please, ask respectful questions. Zach's been gracious with his time. I'm going to go Buckeye first. Go ahead, Buckeye. All right, it's unmuted. Buck,
Sorry, I was delayed mute.
it's all right.
Uh, Zach, me and Manny have done the Steinbrenner Dolan thing. What's the Leon Rose inflection point? Like, where does this begin? And do you just asking you a question? Do you feel he has to miss this at least one more time before that inflection point happens? Because that's obviously the worst response
yeah.
where we don't want to hear. But what's the Leon Rose inflection point?
I mean, I think that's just the unanswerable question. at what point does an owner realize that he needs to take a step back? And to this point, Woody has not shown any evidence that he's willing to do that. So it's kind of like until it happens, I won't believe it. But I think the Knicks having the success they've had, James Dolan still being the owner, like I think if you want to have hope, like it's that eventually maybe somebody gets through to them. But I think this GM hire is going to be crucial just because if he can secure a pretty good GM and somebody who can change the culture here, then maybe there's some hope that he's willing to turn it around. But yeah, it's still a wait and see thing, and we'll kind of find out as this process happens.
How much do you feel the interview is a full audition versus a reciprocal Q&A for both sides of accountability? Because again, I think we all, and you just echoed the same thing, the accountability that Woody has and fingerprints of this, I don't think he even recognizes that. So do you feel this is a business yes man that's going to get this job again versus someone that holds him accountable in the interview process too?
It's a good question. I think it probably varies from candidate to candidate. Like if it's somebody that has their pick of jobs, then they're going to want to interview the Jets. But like I keep saying, the cliche of there's only 32 jobs. Like there's some guys that might not get another opportunity somewhere else, so they might be more willing to take on whatever the Jets have to offer.
Yeah, I know this hand, so I'll let it go. It's just we've seen this chapter so many times, and again, not that Matt Rule was a special prize, but like it's always something where he's looking for someone to accept a dish of crap, which limits us to turn the corner. But all right, thanks, Zach.
Yep.
All right, next up, Steve.
Hey guys, thanks for getting me on here. Mr. Rosenblatt, small world, my friend. I think I heard you say you're from the Cherry Hill, South Jersey area.
I am.
I'm in Moorestown High grad.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, man. Small world. So anyway, but I guess you've been covering the Jets for what, 2 years, something like that. I've enjoyed your work, my friend.
Thank you. This is my third season.
Oh, but who's counting, right? So, there you go. Hey, real quick, I just have sort of a blast from the past question, if you will, that I think is relevant, and then a more relevant one. I guess what was it, 2 years ago? You had that article about Zach Wilson and Mike LaFleur, and I guess LaFleur wasn't a fan of his. LaFleur was beating the drum for him, I think, right? I know there's some dispute about who wanted him, but it seems like LaFleur definitely did. If you know this, how fast did it go off the rails with those two, him and Zach? And was it a personality thing, or he just realized pretty quickly that for whatever reason he wasn't the guy?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the draft itself was before my time. I do think that Mike liked him coming out of the draft. I think like the idea that there were a lot of people who didn't want Zach in the building. I don't think that's completely accurate. I think they were pretty in sync on that. But yeah, I think it was probably sometime during the first season when he started to realize that Zach maybe didn't have it, and then literally the following off season, what I heard is that in training camp or like OTAs or something like that, he like broached the idea of like benching Zach before week one and like starting Joe Flacco. I think in week one, like he was all the way out going into the 2022 season. So I think that kind of colored. I think their personalities definitely didn't mesh. LaFleur, he was a little more like he was honest with his criticisms, and I think in retrospect, he aged very well with this team because I think he was kind of willing to hold guys accountable and tell them the truth and things like that. And I think they kind of lost that a little bit once they moved on to Hackett and all that. So I do think even in terms of innovation, he was a much better offensive coordinator than what they've had since. I think has been clear.
Hard to argue with that, my friend. I guess my second question, and guys, thank you for getting Zach on the pod here. I appreciate this. Samini's hinted at it. I think he wrote an article about it last year. Stop me if you know this one, right? Saying they weren't sure how much more this losing Garrett could take. I'm sure you're familiar with this. Him and Brees in particular, I think it's sort of, at least I've operated under this, that Sauce is happy here and he'll resign. But at the end of this year, if it goes the way it's going, do you think there's a real chance, just the thought of him and or Brees kind of saying, you know what, it's been a lot of fun, get me out of here? What would you say the odds are of that happening here? Because I got to imagine one, if not both of them, are kind of headed in that direction here, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair concern. Especially Garrett has worn his heart on his sleeve and has been very honest about his frustration. So I think ultimately money does talk. So if they give these guys the money they probably want, I think they'll probably stay. And I think the next coach and whoever their quarterback is, like that all factors in. But that's been my concern with Garrett in particular for the last since 2022 because he's been very open and honest about how annoyed he's been with all the drama around him. So I I hope that they try and build around him because I think he's a stud. But yeah, I don't know. He's a wild card for sure.
So I know in the
Steve,
media you
thanks.
get
I got
one
to
more.
move on because I got five hands and I
Yeah,
want to
thank you. Appreciate it.
appreciate you coming on. Zach, to that point, because people are saying, oh, Garrett, if they don't want to, do you think ultimately, Zach, the money talks and BS walks? Because I want Garrett Wilson to stay. Like, that's the one
Yeah.
jet that I don't want to leave. Like I'm not married to any players here, Zach. I don't buy
Yeah.
jerseys anymore because the Jets have no consistency whatsoever. But do you think Garrett Wilson, will ultimately choose money over, going to a different organization?
Yeah, I think that's just the question that's going to be on everybody's mind. But I lean towards yes. That like if he gets the money he's seeking, he'll be happy here. I do think he knows that being in New York, you can be a bigger star when you succeed, like he has. So, but yeah, I don't know where his head's at in terms of him looking at this team and their kind of inability to maximize his talent to this point. Um, and I do think like if you're talking Sauce versus Garrett, if they would trade one of them, like Garrett has better value right now. I think that's pretty clear,
Mm-hmm.
especially because Sauce has taken a little bit of downswing. So like again, if like a team comes in with a Godfather offer, would a new GM listen? Is the question ultimately. But I again, Garrett would be like at or near the top of my list of guys that I would absolutely try and keep and build around.
So, Zach, just a quick follow up to that. If the new GM comes in, could you see him trying to take care of both Wilson and Sauce immediately going forward, or could you see?
Well, I
Good.
I think Woody is a big factor there. Like Woody has to be willing to give that money, and so the question of how much is Woody going to be able be willing to spend this offseason if it's a rebuilding offseason and all that stuff. Like I think that he loves Garrett. I think he loves how popular he is around here, and so I think Garrett would be somebody he would prioritize even over Sauce at this point.
Yep, guys, there's a ton of hands up. Please try and be short with your questions, and as always, keep it respectful. Jim, go ahead, Jim.
Hey, good morning, Zach.
Morning.
Question. I don't know if you can answer it. Hopefully you can. Forgive me on his name, but the president of legal affairs, Jaime L. I don't know how to say his name.
Jaime Elhai, yeah.
Yes. Now, I know he's president of legal affairs. Like I googled what he does. My concern is like, how much voice does this guy have? Is he like involved in any football related stuff? GM stuff, like I guess if you're around football long enough, you start thinking that you're a football guy when you came in as not one.
Yeah.
Like is this guy like a problem? Because I'm worried about like this guy's been around a long time. Woody is the owner; he gets to do whatever he wants. He owns the team. But does this guy have a voice too much that he shouldn't have? Is he listened to? What's his role?
Yeah, the president of these teams is like such a broad role. I think he is involved in a lot of like the business side of things operationally. Like he's not making football decisions. I think he might be in the room when they make some of them, but I think that from what I heard, I think a lot of times he tries to be a voice of reason back there, and I think it's hard for that to get through when you have someone who acts kind of somewhat irrational like what he does at times. So I think Jaime, I've seen his name come up a lot more recently. I haven't heard much about him being like a problem behind the scenes as much as I think he's someone who tries to steer people in the right direction where he can, even if it doesn't always work.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Wow, a Jaime question.
I know, didn't expect that.
That was not on my bingo card today, Zach. Jay, go ahead.
Morning, PD June.
So,
Zach, I have two short questions. The first question is about Hassan Reddick because I remember I saw some in that report that said that they might not retain him. What's going on with that situation?
Yeah, I mean, it has not been a very positive marriage, I would say, but it might depend on what Hassan Reddick is seeking in free agency and who the new GM and coach is. But yeah, I don't anticipate him coming back just because of how ugly this has been and how little he's made an impact since he came back.
My second question this is probably the most asked question. Do you think that Rodgers is going to be back with the Jets in 2025?
I do not think that. No, I think both sides don't necessarily want it. And I'm very curious to see how these final 6 weeks go in terms of what Roger says and how he handles himself in terms of like, if they're eliminated, is he going to keep playing? Is the big question.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Zach.
Now, Zach, are you back at the facility tomorrow for a
Yeah, we'll be
day
back
or?
there tomorrow, and then not there on Thursday. And I think we're
Right.
back on Friday.
Okay. I'm sure that'll come up, right? I mean, somebody's going to ask
Yeah,
Rogers.
Aaron's gonna be on McAfee today, so
Right.
I'm sure he'll address some of it probably.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead. I think Brad's next, and then Vince. Brad, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Can you hear us?
Zach,
Hey, Brad.
I'm a firm believer is we need a program builder kind of coach.
Yeah.
Brad, we lost you. Zach, you're here, right?
Yep, I'm still here.
We lost Brad. I bet.
Probably had a phone call or something.
What
All right.
any
We'll get
interest
back
in
to
him?
He's still talking. Brad,
Oh.
we lost you for like probably 30 seconds. So repeat that. Oh, well. Vince,
Well,
go ahead.
see,
Vince, go ahead.
Hey, good morning.
what's
Good morning,
going on,
guys.
Vince?
Zach, thanks for
course.
taking time with us. Quick question as far as kind of like the off the field with the Jets, right? So we've seen it over the past couple of years. It's been a little tumultuous with a lot of players off the field, as you just alluded to. Rodgers goes on McAfee and says whatever he says, and then Sauce Gardner's gotten into a couple social media back and forths the past couple weeks. Quincy posted a cryptic message. It just the dynamic. I mean, how important is that? Is what players are saying outside, on social media and in meetings? Is it even something that the team is looking into about how ridiculous players look? Outside of the football field. I mean, is this an issue within the team? And do you think that the next coach and staff is really going to crack down something that it seemed like the Saleh, Ulbrich, Douglas regime never really cared to do and crack down on what players are saying outside of the locker room?
I think it gets emphasized more when your team is losing and when your team is having the kind of season they're having. I think I think it looks way worse when you have guys doing that stuff while things are already bad. I don't necessarily think it's something they're like researching. I do think there is something to be said about whatever the next coach that comes in, kind of trying to nip that in the bud, because this is a team that tends to they try their best to avoid the noise and being in the New York market, but I think they do struggle at times at that. And so finding a coach, and I think Solid was good at this to a degree, trying to get everybody to keep the main thing. But at a certain point, things get really loud, and especially this year after Solid gets fired, and you have all the turmoil that this team has had, like it just gets so loud and hard to stop. And I just think they need to bring in I just think Vrabel. I don't know that they have an actual chance of getting him unless they offer him the moon, but he's just the perfect coach in terms of culture setter, guy who's going to hold everybody accountable. And so, like, if they can get a guy like with that kind of mindset, that had like just somebody who's very focused on, everybody flowing in the same direction, like I think that's who they need to go all in for.
And then if I can quickly follow up on one point, McAfee with Rodgers, was there ever an issue with that when he signed here
No.
that the team didn't want him on that, or they basically just gave him the world like they do
Nah,
with everything else?
Actually, the opposite. Their whole thing was always like, we're not gonna keep him from making the money he makes from doing that show, and they view it as actually a distraction as much as everybody following the Jets did, I would say.
Good questions, Vince. Zach, real quick, I'm going to put my 2 cents in on this. My top choices for coaches are Vrabel 1. I'll take Flores 2. And the sleeper for me is Aaron Glenn because he's been a Jet.
Yeah.
But give me your thoughts on that.
I mean, that's honestly that's the that I would like to. I think was like as Vrabel, both like coaches that are against. Yes, they're like he does. He's clearly a great lead line defense into one of the better ones, which are pretty years ago. So, and there's the whole homecoming that and him on. There's some. I think that's the one I keep saying in my prediction as here right now, because it's a combo of he's a candidate that I think we would like. And the flip side, he's someone that would is a prerequisite, obviously.
Zach, we were losing you for a bit. Are you walking around? No disrespect, but I couldn't hear it. The Wi-Fi was coming in and out. Can you hear us?
No, I'm sitting on my.
All right. All right, there
Just,
you are. You're good. All right. Okay, Tom, go ahead.
Morning, Zach. Thanks for coming on. Big fan of your work and all your colleagues at The Athletic.
thanks.
Love reading that every day. But maybe you kind of cut off and mention with that since if I was hearing you right, saying your pick or prediction, you're leaning toward Aaron Glenn of PD's three. We go Aaron Glenn, then who would you hope or who have you heard could be linked in? Because we were going defense again. If we go Aaron Glenn, who would you see as being the offensive coordinator that we would need then?
Yeah, I mean that would be the biggest question if you're hiring somebody that's not an offensive coach. I don't really have a good answer because I don't know who Aaron Glenn has relationships with, but um, I think it becomes an appeal. Anytime an offensive coordinator can run the whole show on offense, I think that becomes an appealing thing. So I think he's somebody that would be able to get a pretty good offensive coordinator.
Okay, because like some saying, like June's point being with Jets dysfunction, and everything like they have to offer the moon to get someone here, even though there's all these limited jobs. So we just want to, make sure. Sorry, little cough there, but just make sure that the key being the GM pick and the head coach pick going forward does not think us further and further.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's a fair concern.
Zach, it's going to be
All right, thanks, Zach.
Thanks, Tom. It's going to be a busy off season, Zach, for sure.
Sure is. Yeah, I was talking about that with somebody yesterday. A lot of a new head coach, new GM, possibly new quarterback. A lot of changes in free agency, high draft pick. Yeah, going to be nice and busy.
Zach, back to that like Quincy Williams stuff, because at first when I believe when they lost to Minnesota, he was saying, I'm tired, bro, of the same stuff being said.
Yeah.
I thought it was towards Salah. Do you think there's any chance that was towards number 8?
Maybe. I think it was more a broad criticism that, like, I think the defense had been so frustrated with how often they were doing their part and the offense was not. Like, dates back to 2022. I don't want to speak for Quincy because I don't know where his head was at. In the moment, I did interpret it as a solid thing. In retrospect, like maybe it was just like this team doesn't have it or something. Like I don't know, but he was pretty foretelling in terms of the lack of like accountability in that franchise. So
Yeah. Zach, now it's we haven't even talked about the play on the field. Zach, I really believe, and listen, the season's shot, but I know he's slowing down a little bit, but I think the Jets really miss Mosley on defense, man.
yeah, I mean, at the very least, they're missing his leadership and his ability to call things out because they look like a mess out there. And having him out there with Ulbrich calling plays and all the struggle that he's had with that, I think Mosley would be helping a little bit. I think Sherwood has been pretty good, but he doesn't bring what Mosley brings like cerebrally. So there's something to that, and it's unfortunate because I think even when Mosley does come back, I think he's pretty clearly physically not the same player anymore, but mentally he's a very important piece.
Yeah, Sherwood's, I believe, in the top 5 in tackles in the league, which he didn't even play the first couple of weeks a lot, right? If
Yeah,
I'm right.
exactly. So he's done a good job.
Now, Zach, can you see the Jets moving on from Mosley after this year too?
Yeah, I do wonder if Mosley, like he's had a lot of injuries this year, and he has this neck injury right now that I think he was pretty scared about. So I do wonder if he'd even retire. But it kind of depends on the next regime. If you want like a leader in your locker room, you bring him back. But I think they can save a little bit of money if they cut him. Not like a lot. I think it would have to be post June 1,
Yes.
but because they just guaranteed his contract for 2 years or whatever it was. So but yeah, I don't know. I lean towards him not coming back, but I could see like someone trying to set a culture. He's a good guy to have in the room.
Yeah, Zach, I actually looked at the post because if they cut him before June, it's like a negative 4 million. But if
Yeah.
it's after June 1st, then they save 4 million, but they still eat like I forget if it's 13 or 9. but you're right about that.
They're gonna have a lot. They're gonna have a lot of dead cap money to deal with this offseason, I would say.
Well, yeah, they did this year too. What they have almost 60
Yeah,
million. So,
yeah, crazy.
Jim, go ahead, and then Vince again.
Yeah, Zach. Another question. Since the Jets, fired Douglas, and they're the only team I think clearly that is in a GM search right now. Are they? Are they? Can they hire someone if they interview, just say, a guy from the Bengals, like director of player personnel? Can they hire a GM? I guess if it's allowed. And do you think if it is allowed, do you think that would happen like before the end of the season, the next 6 weeks, or do you think they're gonna take their time and wait until after the season to really get that done, and then the GM will get the coach?
Yeah, you can't hire anybody in another franchise during the season. It would have to be after the regular season. But there are candidates hypothetically out there that aren't employed that you could interview, like if we're talking GM, like Thomas Dimitroff. Like there's I can't think of any other big. I mean, if you wanted to interview Louis Riddick, I guess. But yeah, I don't see them hiring a GM before the end of the season. I think it's more they'll take their time. They want to find the right one, and I think they're going to hire the GM first.
Can they interview front office people from other teams? Can they
Not
even
not
do
during
that?
not during the season, but
Oh, so
you can start putting in those requests once the regular season ends, I believe. They've changed up
gotcha.
the schedule a little bit, but I think that's how it's like at the end of the regular season is when you can start requesting.
Okay, gotcha. I knew that had to do with coaches, but I wasn't sure about front office
Right.
jobs. Thank you.
So,
Yeah, no
so
problem.
Zach, to that question though, like a Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, they're probably going to have a bye week unless Philly just, gets the number one seed. But I don't see that happening. So they'll interview on their bye week.
I think like again, I'm gonna have to look this up because
Okay,
I know they changed some of the rules because they didn't want like the Jonathan Gannon thing to happen where he was like talking to the Cardinals like when he wasn't supposed to or whatever. So I can't remember what they changed it to, but I believe once the regular season's over, you can start interviewing, and then I think maybe once the playoffs officially start is when it goes on pause or something like that. So I have to look that up though.
fair enough. Vince, go ahead.
Hey, thanks for letting me ask
Yep.
another one. Zach, what the hell is going on with Tony Adams and the safety position? I just feel like last year it looks like they put all their eggs in a basket with Adams. He was one of the few starters that didn't play in the preseason. We kept hearing about Tony Adams, and then he got injured. There was issues at safety last year, and then he starts this year. He's supposed to be this you know, steal of the draft, and he's benched for it seems like reasons above him, but he's benched, and now the Jets going into next year. If he's been on bench, and Chuck Clark's on a limited deal, and Ashton Davis is on a limited deal, and Jalen Mills probably not coming back. I mean, what direction are they going in safety, and do you even think they have a plan outside of hoping to draft a couple?
Yeah, that's a position that I think might be completely revamped because all the guys you listed and Isaiah Oliver, Tony Adams included, these are guys that are all going to be free agents, and so um, I feel like they're probably going to completely redo the safety room. That's not like as big of a concern for me as like some other positions because I think they've survived with like okay safeties over the years in this defense. I mean, they might have a different defense next year, but yeah, I think Tony Adams, he's a young player. I still would bring him back on a short cost, and even if he has to be like your third safety or something, I kind of like him. But I think moving on from Clark and Jalen Mills and Isaiah Oliver is, I think that's probably what will happen, and then you rebuild the room, whether it's with rookies or low cost free agents.
Yeah, Zach, I don't know if we'll talk again before the end of the year, but I got a couple of rapid fires before I get you out. But one last
Sure.
question. Um, who do I know Costello picked Nagy as the next head
Yeah.
coach, but where do you think this coaching who would you say right now would be the coach if you had to predict? I'm sorry if I'm putting you
Yeah.
on the spot.
No, you're good. I think I cut off earlier when I was saying this, but I think Aaron Glenn is my early pick right now. Like if I'm predicting right this second, I just think it lines up like logically that he would be the one. He's the Jets history, the success he's had in Detroit. He's a good leader. You watch his press conferences; he's very impressive. I think he'd build a pretty good staff. So I think he's someone I could see like winning the interview. I do think I think Woody wants a head coach with experience. I think they're going to target like the best candidates of that ilk. I think they're going to go after Vrabel. think he's going to have his option of pretty much every opening. So I don't think he takes it, but I think they are going to really go hard after him. Um, and so that's obviously best case scenario. If you're picking any coach, I think everybody would be happy with that, fan base and internally. But yeah, I think Aaron Glenn is my early prediction right now.
Hey, Zach, real quick question. Uh, how much would you be surprised if Rex Ryan end up getting the job? I gotta ask the question, and I have to ask.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Rex would tell you he has a great shot, but uh, I don't see. I think that's like a very last case. Worst case scenarios happened. All the people they wanted took other jobs, and it's Rex and Mike Tannenbaum being like, "Let's get the whole band back together." But I don't see it happening. I see pretty low odds on that, but not zero, which is not something I would have guessed if you asked me like 6 months ago.
Mm.
Zach, who's the more dysfunctional franchise in New York, Jets or Giants right now?
Man, it's a good question. The Giants are really giving the Jets a run for their money because it's like a different kind of dysfunction because everybody kind of just assumes that John Mara is like not dysfunctional relative to Woody, but I think it's pretty clear he you know they have a lot of issues over there that keep popping up, and now the Giants had something happen this after this game that I have not seen happen around the Jets since I started covering them, and that's the locker room like openly being like, we're soft, we didn't play hard.
Yeah.
Ask Coach Dable why we didn't play hard. Like all this. Like I haven't seen like it was like 5 or 6 guys out of the locker room and some of them leaders, and I'm like, so that's worse than what I've seen with the Jets. I think ultimately they're a lot closer than anybody would. Like Mike Sando from the Athletic actually compared like their dysfunction and their level of success and stuff, and it's about even. So
Zach,
I think that says a lot.
Zach, were those supposedly there were noises and bang in the locker and all that? No pun intended, but when Dable was talking, like they were mad that they were letting Daniel Jones go. I think it's more fractured than the Jets, to be honest, which is
Yeah,
hard to say.
I think the locker room is more fractured. I think the Jets have other issues, but ultimately, like I think the craziest part, I saw somebody tweet this. Like I don't know if this is the first time this has happened or in how many years, but like both the Giants and Jets are probably going to be looking for a new quarterback, coach, and GM, like both organizations, which is pretty crazy that New York is like in this state of disarray at the same time.
Yeah, Zach, I think I'm gonna get a chuckle you out of this rapid fire one. Better chance next year of it happening. Rex Ryan as the coach or Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback?
I think I heard I think I popped on when you asked Cause that the other day. Um, Man, it's hard. I lean I lean Aaron just because like if he plays well over the last 6 games and they like all of a sudden win a bunch of games and they hire a coach that could work with him, I could see that. I just can't see the Rex thing happening. It's like maybe it's just I don't want it to happen, or I just think it would be a bad idea. But I lean Aaron, I guess,
All
not
right.
like confidently.
Well, Zach, now I think and call me crazy, but the Jets are going to jet, so they're going to win a few games. I just don't know how many. Do you
It is,
think? Do you
it is
think?
funny how all Jets fans are kind of just assuming they're going to win games they don't need to.
Well,
I hear that all the time.
because we're going to be fighting with each other that we should just tank to lose. And
Yeah, yeah,
listen,
yeah,
Zach, I can't root for the Jets to lose. I'll be honest on here, I can't.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
do you see them winning a few games here?
I mean, their schedule is like harder than anybody. I thought when everybody looked at this part of the schedule, they were like, it's very easy. But I think the Seahawks looked pretty good against the Cardinals, who killed the Jets. The Dolphins are really good. You have 2 against them. The Bills are like way better than any other AFC East team, and the Rams are solid. So you could convince me they lose all 6, but I also, as you were saying, this is the Jets, so like I could see them going like 3-3 also.
Hey, Zach, he's mentioning me. It's me and him that goes back and forth with this tanking thing.
No,
He wants to
it's
win
more though.
games. I want to lose games.
All right, Zach, couple more, just the rapid fire. All right, next year we'll do this because again, I'm sure we'll talk again. But thanks again for all your time, man.
For sure.
Alan Lazard, will he be back next year?
I don't think so because you can get some cap space from cutting him, and I think we saw what he looks like when Aaron isn't his quarterback, so I think he's gone.
All right, so you think Adams has a shot at being back, Devontae?
I mean, I still lean towards no. Like I think lean heavily towards no, but I would think that they would at least look into bringing him back because he's good enough to bring back.
Jamie and Sherwood.
Yeah, I think he's back. I think he's a young player, and you should make sure you keep him in the building.
Sauce, you're on the fence about.
Yeah, I still lean towards him coming back though.
All right, would you bring back Morgan Moses?
I would. Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Okay,
look,
and
look. I
go ahead,
got one
June.
too. I got one too. Source giving the extension or Source being traded?
Like, what's more likely out of the two?
Yeah.
I say extension is more likely.
Okay.
And with that extension, Zach, do you think he's going to reset as the highest corner, or you think he'll just be in
I would
range of it?
I would think so. I mean, that's usually how these things go, especially, as down as everybody seems to be on him, he was an all pro the first 2 years of his career. And I think he took a downswing from that, but I still think he's a quality starting corner, even if like this is what he is now. I think that he'll be better coming off this experience, whatever coach is in there. So yeah, I think I don't know if he'll reset the market, but he'll be right up there at the top.
Do the Jets work on an extension with Brees Hall this year, or just let it play out and let him
I
go?
think I think you let it play out just in terms of like business with running backs. I think you let it play out and make sure he gets through the end of this rookie deal, and then you before the or whether you franchise tag him or resign him after that, like then you make that decision. But yeah, I wouldn't sign him too early unless he's giving you a discount.
All right, my last one. Will there be any holdovers from the Jets coaching staff, like a Tony Oden or somebody?
Mm, that's a good question. It probably depends on like if Mike Vrabel's coming in, he has like 3 Titans
I
coaches
know
in there already.
Todd. That
So.
I don't want Keith Carter back. That's for the record. How come he's
well,
not talked about enough, Zach? Like,
Well, I just think there's so many other things to focus on with the Jets is probably why, honestly. But yeah, I think the offensive line is better right now. I think you could say that. So at the very least, they've made progress. So, but yeah, in terms of like what coaches, if I'm gonna say like which ones will be back, I would pinpoint Big Ron Middleton. Um, I would try and bring Aaron Wycon back if you could, and then like yeah, Tony Oden would be one I'd be interested in.
all right,
Okay. Wait.
June, go ahead, and then we'll get Zach out of here.
Last one, Zach. Can you see any player holding out next season?
That's a good question. I mean, if I was gonna pick one too, it'd probably be Garrett, but I don't know. I mean that's guys do that now. Like you
Yeah.
saw that Jamar Chase like didn't practice like all of training camp or whatever it
Yes.
was. So Garrett receivers in particular seem to be the ones that hold out. So I'd have my eye on Garrett, especially if he's unhappy with the situation and he wants to be like pay me or I'm gone kind of thing.
Mm.
All right, Zach, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for joining.
Of
Happy
course.
Thanksgiving to you and your family, and
Yeah,
maybe
you
I'll
too.
see you
Thanks,
at one of
brother.
the games
Appreciate
or
it.
in the off season, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, have a good one, guys.
I'll be in touch. Thanks, Zach.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, bye.
Take care. June, you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, Tom, Jim, anybody want to comment?
Well, it's always glad with the connections you seem to have, PD, with the guests you get in here. It helps make these spaces way more fun. And I'm glad we were all respectful to Zach, at least on this one, because he seems like he's cool, especially for a reporter. Because I know he gets a lot of heat from other spaces for his work, because I guess they just don't want to hear what he reports.
Yeah, but I asked them, the reports that are made up, I threw in some sarcasm there. But listen, he's got a job to do. So,
Exactly. People forget that.
yep. Jim, what did you think? Jim, you here?
I don't think he's really.
I like to make a comment after listening. And this, I keep going back and forth. This team's driving me out of my mind. You know what? Blow this fucking thing up.
Thank
I
you.
am so
Thank
sick
you.
of being a Jet fan and having to hear shit from every other fan base. I got a ton of Jets clothes that if I wear something, I get abused. It's like there's no near fix. Nobody has an idea, and certainly not our owner of where we're going. I'll never buy season tickets again. Never. This team has killed me, taking years off my life, and I'm pretty old. I don't want to lose anymore. Fucking sucks. Excuse my language, Petey.
It's all right.
I usually don't curse, man. I'm usually
Look,
pretty down to earth, but this team,
look, bro.
my
It's completely.
God, my wife ridicules me every
It's
day.
completely
Me and my
justified.
son, Yeah, life of a Jet. Me and my son get home from the game, hour and a half drive to get back. First thing she says, "You losers happy?" The life of a Jet fan.
Oh
At
man,
this point, I agree, June, because there's no quarterback. Nobody knows what they're doing. Just blow it up.
just blow it
Blow
up.
it up.
And not to mention, like he just said, one of the biggest questions that Garrett's gonna ask is, "Who's my quarterback? Who's my quarterback?"
Yeah.
And you want
But
me?
I
You
don't.
want
But
me? You
June,
want
I
me?
don't
You want me
see
to
that though.
resign? What do you mean? It's logic, Petey. If you want me to stay here and deal with all this bullshit you got, who's my quarterback?
I get it, June, but I
Uh,
think it's more than that.
But at
I
the
think the
same
money's
time,
a big factor.
but at the same time, the Jets are not going to pay him something that no other team can match. I mean, eh, if it's 30, you can get 30 from Cleveland. You can get 30 from like I mean, it has to be more than just money. Tell him who's his quarterback.
Well, we don't know that yet.
And that's the reason why I'm saying now, maybe maybe it might be wise to do that, because the minute one of them players come out and say, "I don't want to be here no more," you lose leverage. And
Oh, that's
Petey,
coming. There's guys that are going to jump off
it's
ship.
it
This
will be
Petey,
thing,
that.
this thing is going to be a disaster before the season's over.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
The locker
Hold
room is
on here. Let
lost.
let let's hear this. What's up, man?
Petey,
Yes.
how many times were you going to ask that guy the same fucking question and reworded to try to get some different kind of fucking response to
Hey,
make you fuckers sleep?
ha,
You guys are the worst.
you know what? How many times are you going to keep listening to me and keep coming back because you pay attention to me so much? How about that? How about that? I'm asking them legit questions. Why don't you get a guest on and see what you could do? I'll gladly join. Passionate. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving.
He can't hear you. He's gone. DM him.
Neek, what's up?
Good morning, y'all.
Good
You ready
morning,
to
Neeks.
sing yet for Thanksgiving? This may be a paid audition, Neek. You know I'm Neek, you know I'm gonna do this every day until you do it.
I was listening to all the BS coming out of his mouth because he knows how to spin it. But did I hear him correctly when he said the Giants locker room admitted to being soft?
Yeah, they did get it. Did you see that on post game interviews with that? Yes.
And I know he saw it as that was a bad thing, opposite of us. In actuality, that's better. That means they're holding themselves accountable, something
Well,
that we don't do.
they're
Yeah, but
right.
Neek, when you're leaking it to the media, it's not good in my opinion.
They're going after the coach right now, and
Yeah.
I don't know what done happened or whatever, but the head coach and GM is gone, especially from watching what Saquon Barkley is doing.
I was about to say they should have been gone once after the first game with Philly.
Well, look, a smart owners don't fire their coaches and GMs during the season.
Mm, I guess. But they know they out though.
Yeah, they do.
And most teams don't and most teams don't do what they do on the night shift, June.
Plus Mara, he has a reputation and it's a family reputation. So, and he's actually a football guy.
Yes, he
So
is.
that's, that family, the Jets, the Giants, and the Steelers. Sheesh.
Hey, June,
Yep.
remember these? What was it, Scarface? When they threw the guy off the helicopter? I
Yes.
can see Woody have picked up Douglas, take off, and then drop him right off the
What he
helicopter.
say? I never liked that guy. I never trusted him in the first place.
Yep.
Hey, Steve, go ahead, man.
Petey, I appreciate you setting this up, my friend. I've heard your podcast once or twice before. I've always wanted to talk to Rosenblatt, so I appreciate
No,
you being the conduit to make it
my
happen here.
man. Very,
Hey,
very direct I like the speaking, how you present yourself. I appreciate that. Anytime.
Thank you, Petey. Petey, real quick, two questions for you. I tried to hear your Costello one last week.
Yeah.
Something happened. Me being the schmuck that I am, I screwed it up. I didn't hear it. Is it recorded somewhere? Would I be able to hear it at some point, or am I just shit out of luck? I guess.
Did you record that one?
Yeah. I'll send you the details in a DM, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I guess my last question is this, Garrett, right? I brought it up. In the perfect world, I keep him, right? But if you can't win paying him, what? He's probably in for $3 million a year, something low. If you can't win paying him at $3 million, are we really going to be that much better off winning if we have to pay him $30
Hey, Steve, I
million?
love you, man, because I ask this question every other day, and everybody jumps on me when I say it. I'm loving the fact that you just acted saying, thank you. Please answer this question, Petey.
No, I'm not going to give Steve the same passion and answer as I
Come
would
on.
towards you, June.
Come on. Answer his question, Steve.
Hit me.
Steve,
Hit me.
Steve,
I like to hit and get hit.
Steve,
Hit me.
No, Steve. You know what? I'm not checked out right now, but I don't have the energy for this conversation right
Steve,
now.
you don't want to.
Steve, I will table this
Hey,
for a
Steve.
different time. Why don't you? I'm not just saying this. Well, you ask me this either tomorrow or Friday, right?
Stevie,
How
he's
about
not.
that? I'll take.
Steve, he's
remember.
not going to answer the question tomorrow.
Steve,
Watch, you see.
I'll take a rain check on it, brother.
He's not going to do it.
Oh yes, I am.
I've asked you that for the past 5 months, and I got no answer. So I can't wait till you answer
Got
this
an
question.
answer. You're crazy if you don't want Garrett Wilson back.
No. That's not what I said. If you
Okay.
can't win with him and you pay him peanuts, why would you pay him 30 or anything else? And you can't win with them now.
But don't things sometimes take time to build? So you still have them.
I love it, bro. Yo, he's so he is a yo. I'm telling you, this guy bleeds green. He bleeds green, bro.
Petey, I think you and I are on the same age, man. I'm 36. They'll be 37 soon. The goal is to win before we're senior citizens here, right? I mean, how much time are we talking?
Hey, that did not work for me, my buddy.
I'll confirm.
That did not work for me.
I'm closer to senior citizen than you, bro.
And I'm right there. I'm knocking on the fucking door right now. So trust me, it didn't work for me either.
I appreciate it, Petey. Thank you.
You got it. I'm actually looking up the details now for the
Costello.
Yeah.
Good. I need something that pisses me off when I'm playing golf tomorrow.
November.
So hearing that'll be
November
good.
20th. It was. Office. Go ahead. His office is gone. Mr. Negative, I know you came up here.
What up, brother?
I'm closing in a minute, but what's your thoughts? What's up? Mr. Negative, you there? Oh, well. And there wouldn't be a space without Jarek being up here.
Petey, before you close, man, listen, you got to tear it down, man.
I know. How did I know you were saying
you got to
that?
tear it down.
Because
I think
it's true.
I think you and June premeditate this.
No, listen, it is only logical, bro. Everything is Band-Aid fixes with this team. And you see the Band-Aids don't never work.
Oh, my gosh. Look who's coming up.
Who?
It's the Hexican.
Oh,
Yo!
shit.
Where you been?
Hex, what up, bro? Last time I spoke to you, you said that Jess was going to win. Talk to me. Where you at?
Yeah.
Oh, now you want to speak low.
You guys ain't shit because you call yourselves my family, but you should have known I haven't spoken in over 2 weeks, and the reason being, mother flowers, is that the fat ladies were beating me up. They kidnapped me.
And they sung you too, didn't they?
They kidnapped me for the last 2 weeks. They've been singing in my fucking ears nonstop. The only fucking reason I got out is because some fucking drunk Giants fan was passing by. I tripped that motherfucker and I fucking switched the shit on. And
June, you got to ask the question, June.
Now he's in there.
Yes, you know I got to explain. Hex,
Now the fat lady singing
Hex,
all over. I think they're gonna fucking eat him. I really thought I was
Hex,
dead.
Hex. Are you ready for my question?
June,
Hex, are you ready for my question? I've been waiting
June,
to ask you this shit. Are you ready for it?
June, leave me alone, June. Happy Thanksgiving, people.
I
Happy
can't even get it out.
Thanksgiving. I can't even. I don't even understand. I don't even understand how this only happens to us. This is the worst season that I mean, bring Rich Kotite back, man, for real, bro. It
Hey, Rusty, how you doing? I sent you a mic. How you doing, Rusty?
Hex, man.
I'm doing.
It's time.
I'm
You
doing
got to tear it
fine.
down, brother. It's time.
Hi,
I'm
Rusty.
sorry.
How you doing? Listen, I disagree with you, June, on one thing.
All right, I'm listening.
Now, I do believe we need to tear it down. You know, I
Yes,
said that, and I meant
yes,
it.
yes.
But I do think we should keep Garrett Wilson, and the
No,
reason is if we bring in a rookie quarterback, he's got to have a good receiver that he can depend on. And if Garrett was able to do as well as he was when Zach Wilson was there, I think that he would be really important to developing a rookie.
now, Rusty, I agree with you 100%. But my thing is, you're not. I don't think the Jets are gonna be able to keep him if they have no answer at quarterback. Because once again, you want me to stick around. In my first 3 years, I've witnessed nothing but turmoil, bad play, bad coaching, owner who always meddling, and at the same time, you want me to stick around again, and I don't even know who my quarterback
Hey,
is.
June, but where's he going? You mentioned Cleveland, so Cleveland is a better
No,
destination.
no, 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 no. It- he can go anywhere he wants to. Who has a quarterback? Why wouldn't he?
Yeah, but we still own him for 2 more years. We own
Right.
his contract.
Now, Rusty, I agree with you on that. But the minute that man says, "Get me out of there," you lose the leverage, and now you have to get rid of him because everybody know that he's not happy,
And if he wants to hold out, that he has that right to hold
and
out.
he can hold that. He
Yep.
can hold out starting next year after this season
Yeah,
if he chose.
this is not Reddick where
No,
Reddick is losing a
I
huge amount
get
of money.
that. I get
Right,
that. And I'm saying that I think we should offer him a contract. And if he's willing to stay, then that's terrific. You can't force a person to stay on your team if they
right,
really don't want to be here.
and
But
not for
I'm
nothing.
hoping that he'll want to stay because this is the team he came to.
Now,
You never
Rusty.
Yep.
know. If you're willing to pay him, I think there's a chance he would stay.
Now, Rusty. Even if you make him an offer after this season, his question is, "Who's my quarterback?" And we got no answers.
Well, we don't because we don't know who's going to be available in the draft. I mean, I think that we should be drafting a quarterback because I don't think there's anybody who's available that I would want for a long-term basis.
Yeah, you could
Eggs.
take it, but June, you could take a chance on somebody, and maybe it's look at what happened with Mayfield. His career got resurrected in Tampa.
Yeah, but at the same
Yeah, but
time,
he was always good.
right? I mean, at one
He didn't
point,
work out in Cleveland, though,
He
Rusty.
didn't work
no,
out in
no, no.
Cleveland because they wanted Watson.
That's the reason why he didn't work out because last I remember he did take them to the playoffs and they did
Yeah,
beat Pittsburgh in the
remember he won
playoffs.
the offensive rookie of the year. He had 30 like he
Yeah,
set records as a rookie, man. And then a couple years later,
He
yeah.
missed the
won
So
last
playoffs.
season because his shoulder was
That's
hurt.
that's it.
right,
His shoulder was messed
right,
up.
Yeah,
Never recovered.
exactly,
I
Rusty.
don't want to say what I say about Baker Mayfield in previous things because then this will get into a conversation, and I don't want it to continue. I don't think.
I had hoped that
No,
we would go for
I
him
I think
when he
Baker
was
Mayfield
available.
was a failed number one pick for the Browns. He was
No,
the number
I
one
don't
but he
agree
pick.
with that
wasn't.
at all.
He wasn't that though, Petey. He wasn't that.
Well,
I don't agree with that.
that's fine. We'll continue this at a different time.
In fact,
Rusty
I wanted them to draft him instead of
of Darnold, right?
Wright, but of course he was taken number one, so we had no choice.
Right.
And I think
Russ,
that he's going to be a good, solid quarterback.
Yes, he
yeah,
will.
Rusty, it's always good to hear from you. Hexagon, good to see you up here again. You needed the bye week. Uh, anyway,
I can't stop
Guys,
laughing at X. I'm sorry.
have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. All right, June. Thanks.
At least I'm alive, bro. I thought they were gonna eat me, man.
Well, Hexagon, I was
They were trying to
screaming.
eat me,
Where are
man.
you?
They were trying to eat me, man. For real. I got out.
He's in the basement tied up. He just got his phone. He called us
June,
first.
June, thanks.
SOS. Come on, I'm blinking. I'm blinking over here. I'm blinking.
Yeah,
Help.
June, thanks. Thanks again to Zach Rosenblatt for joining. Shout out to the listeners. Subscribe on YouTube. Check out the shorts. We'd appreciate it. Check out some of the recordings. And go Jets and have a good day, guys. Ciao.
Wait, ho. The word of the day. No, the phrase of the day. Tear it
Tear it
down.
down.
I agree.
I'm loving that. Look, I got long suffering and I got Rusty behind. Tear it down. Nika, you with me? Nika, you with me?
I don't
Nick,
know. I don't
please.
know now.
This
Come on.
started as a
Tom, are you
party
with
too,
me,
man. Now it's
Tom?
become a movement. I love it.
I gotta go to